be sailing. And a ship is meant to go through waves and to weather storms, right? Well, when I was 42 years old, my ship was sailing. Life was going along great. And all of a sudden, wham, the storm hit. And that storm's name was cancer. And so I had to look and say, cancer? Diagnosis me? They must have the wrong person. I was healthy. I was a runner. I did triathlons. I ate well, most of the time. And I had this great life. How could I have cancer? But I had to deal with it. So what I did is I decided on that day, I decided when I was diagnosed, the first visions that went through my head were all those visions you see of cancer patients and what they're going through. And I said, no way, that's not me. And I'm not doing that. What I was going to do is change my life and be the exception to the rule. I was going to change my life, and I decided that day I would not be a victim. I decided I'm going to change my life and do everything I can to learn from this experience, which was called cancer. So away I went on treatments. So I was diagnosed with breast cancer, so the first thing I had to do, this is not really maybe the best speech to have at a lunch, but I'm realizing that now. But the first thing I had to go through was a double mastectomy. That's a pretty scary experience because I had breast cancer. So I went through that, and the second most scary experience was when I came out in the recovery room, I was met with the long faces. That's not what you want to see from your friends and family in a recovery room. You know why? Because it had spread to my lymph nodes. Not so good. But I'm not going to be a victim. So I decided to move on. But at that point it had spread to my lymph nodes, and my doctor said, now you have to have radiation and chemo. Fine, I'll do your radiation. So 1 month, boom, doing radiation. Got through that. And then I thought to myself, you know, this chemo thing, not for me. You got to give me another option. So they said, your other option is, because my tumor was based on estrogen, so they said, if you have a hysterectomy, and we put you on a cancer drug called tamoxifen, you'll be fine. I'm like, hysterectomy? That sounds easy. Not so easy. So at 42 years old, I went into surgery full of estrogen, and I came out in menopause, no estrogen. Ladies, I see all the ladies in the house, their eyes just went, oh my word. So then there you go. I went through all these treatments, but now what? What do I do with that? What do I do now? Well, I knew deep down in my soul, deep down in my gut, I needed to do something. I needed to do something that would make a change and to tell me that I could weather any storm. But what was that going to be? So I had been an athlete my whole life, and I decided maybe an athletic endeavor is something that would help me, you know, come out the other side of this experience. So you know what I chose? I chose the Ironman triathlon. Who here has heard of the Ironman? Awesome! Most people are like, don't really know what it is. So, the Ironman triathlon is a race, and it starts out with a 2.4 mile swim, followed by a 112 mile bike ride, followed by a 26.2 mile run. Let's try that again. By the way, that race is all done in 1 day. And there's actually time cut limits on it, meaning you can't just go and do it at your own pace. There's cutoff times on each section. That didn't matter to me. By the way, the overall time, you have to do that race in under 17 hours in order to have the race, and in order to qualify. Pardon me?
It's not a relay, you have to do it all yourself.
Oh yeah, this race, you have to do it all yourself. So I'm like, now the Ironman, that's a huge goal. And I want that goal. I don't know why, but I want that goal. So I'm sitting in my oncologist's office. This was on, just starting year 2. And my husband and I are waiting for CAT scan results. That's always a good time. And so we're waiting for CAT scan results, and all of a sudden, I said to Dave, tears running down my face, I said, if she walks in this room and says those CAT scans are clear, I'm doing the Ironman. She walked in the room, and Dave said, you're committed. You're doing the Ironman. The CAT scan was clear. But now what? I've already put that goal out there. Now it's time for the rubber to hit the road. It's time for me to start training. 6 months of my life, I trained for this one event. For 6 months, I trained to do the Ironman. Do you know what that looks like? It's a lot of eating, a lot of drinking water, and a lot of biking, running, and swimming. So I was dedicated. It was like a job to me, which I had a full-time job as well. I would go out on 100-mile bike rides on my own for training. And I'd bike out in Myakka State Park and like all the way to Arcadia. I did this in wind and rain. I was out there in storms so bad that drivers by would stop and ask if they could give me a lift, and I'd say no, because deep down I knew I have to get through these storms. So then came the day. We're at the Ironman. We're at Ironman, Maryland, and my head pops off the pillow at 4 a.m. and I went, oh my, what have I done? It was the time for the Ironman. As we walked outside, it was 38 degrees outside. I think Dave's reliving this experience right now. It's 38 degrees. I was like, what am I going to do now? So we get to the race. The wind is howling. They actually almost called it off because the weather was so bad that day. So as we're standing there, I'm in my wetsuit, I'm ready to go, and the gun goes off. And it was time to start the Ironman. So there I am in the water with 2,500 other people. You know what it's like swimming in the water when you have over 2,000 people with you? It's a very scary experience. But I got through the swim leg, and I got in way underneath the time cut. Then it was onto the bike.
What water were you in?
It was in the Chesapeake. Yeah, it was in the Chesapeake. So then came the bike. So you get out of the water, you take your wetsuit off, and you go to your bicycle. So for me, 112 miles, it took me 5 hours. Okay? And it was in the worst wind conditions I've ever biked in my entire life. It was so windy. I would bike from 25 miles an hour down to 12 miles an hour. But I just stuck with it, and all I did was eat, drink, and bike. Pedal, 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 eat, because you got to keep your fuel up on the bike to be able to last, and to drink water. So then the bike ended, and I was coming through the transition. I saw my husband there, and I'm like, yes, I got through the bike. It's time for the run. So that's the last section. I'm like, I'm ready. It's 26.2 miles. This is an entire marathon to go. So I started to run. And the first mile was great. I'm like, I got this. I got this. And then the second mile, I was like, what have I done? How am I going to do this? Well, the nice thing is I wear a watch that has what is called interval settings. And what I do is I run for 3 minutes and I walk for 1. And I realized at mile 2 that if I focused on 26.2 miles, I would never make it. But if I focused on just 3 minutes, those 3 minutes right in front of me, that I would make it. And that's what cancer was for me. When I was diagnosed with cancer, if I tried to see the end result, I would have never made it. I had to focus on the present. I had to focus on what I had in that moment and what gifts I could work with, and then I knew I could make it. I've told people before, you can drive from here to California in the middle of the night. All you need to do is see 12 feet in front of you where your headlights shine. You don't need to see the whole way. So this journey through the run was focused on every 3 minutes. And I ran. And I ran, and I ran. And I just focused on the next 3 minutes. And the next thing you know, I heard that announcement. Now this is where I start to break down. I heard that announcement that they say at the Ironman. I was running down the road, and it's a red carpet. And by the way, it's pitch dark out right now and windy. And I'm running down the red carpet, and I see the banner, and I hear, Terry Hoops from Bradenton, Florida, you are an Ironman. It took me 12 hours, 21 minutes, and 12 seconds. How spooky is that? So it was just so exciting. And yes, I ran into my husband's arms, and photos were taken, and food was eaten, and then we went along our way. But what does that all mean? Well, what it means is, my ship does not sit in the harbor anymore. I don't stay tied to a dock. I take my ship out to sea and I sail it. And you know what? If a storm comes along, so be it. Because what history has already showed me is I have the tools and the ability to weather storms. Because that's what I have gone through. So the slogan of the Ironman is anything is possible. And I truly believe in my soul that anything is possible.